Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Welcome to the Vulnerable Voices podcast with your host, me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. You've been a massive, massive part of my journey this year, and I cannot wait to unravel all the amazing work that you've been doing with clients on yourself. And I know that anyone who's on a mission to help others usually has an incredible journey behind them and the reasons why they do what they do. So I'm really, really excited to chat to you today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to see you as well.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get stuck into it.
Brilliant. So, I'm Sarah Collins. I'm a media trainer and communication coach. And my background is in television production. So, I worked in for ITV and then ITN for over 20 years, commuting into London. And then I found coaching and did a coaching qualification. And I was just at a stage in my kind of career where I realized I had tools to help people. And I kind of saw a gap. And so I left the TV world and branched out on my own, and now help particularly kind of female business owners to speak with impact in media interviews.
Brilliant. What was that like? What was that whole experience like, working with ITV and the people that you met?
It was, I mean, when I look back now, it was an absolute whirlwind. When you work in, I'm sure other industries are similar, but in TV, it was kind of 150%.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Feet barely touched the ground. I met so many incredible people. And yes, you meet celebrities, but actually, the ones that stick in my mind are like what we're talking about stories today, but it's the people, it's the case studies that we spoke to who had incredible stories. Those are the memories that I've got. Um, and I loved being able to help them share those stories and, putting that onto the screen so that their story might inspire or help somebody else. And I've always loved that part of my career. And that's kind of what I'm taking through with me now as well. So yeah, it was a whirlwind. It was amazing. I did lots of traveling. And it's something I don't regret. I needed to kind of go through all that. I don't regret a single minute of it. I absolutely I loved that part of my career.
It's so nice that you say you don't regret it because often people can look back and think, oh, do you know, I wish I had done something different. Or I wish I'd not done that. Or I wish I'd explored, etc. But it's actually really nice to hear that you go, do you know what? I'm owning this journey and I don't regret one bit of it. It's actually made you who you are today. I think it's incredibly brave to be honest about the past and what your journey's kind of been like and how it's impacted you as well. Um, I know with like mission driven, purpose driven businesses, it always stems from somewhere. There's like a deeper meaning that is the reason behind it or experiences that you've been through. Take us back to when you were younger. What was like your childhood like, your upbringing? School, your family. Tell us a little bit about you.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was going to start that with, my upbringing. It was normal for me. It was normal for me. I thought it was quite a normal upbringing. I would spend my week doing hobbies, obviously going to school. At the weekends, we'd have grandparents over for Sunday lunch. We'd go for walks. It was doing all those things that I think that generation above us were very used to doing. I think when it comes to the topic of what we're talking about today, and in particular speaking, um, uh, all I can remember really is my schooling. I just was so shy. I was so shy, and there's particular moments that kind of stand out for me.
Mhm.
Just you know where I wish I had the ability to speak up.
Mm.
I feel like, perhaps my trajectory might have been different, the way that I handled myself might have been different. I just there was a real sense of not thinking that my voice was worthy, I guess. I was never asked my opinion about things, and I think that really had an effect on the way I saw things,
Mm.
because you were made to feel, although I thought it was quite normal to stay quiet and, not have an opinion, now I know actually otherwise, and I know differently. And I've got two daughters, and I'm trying to instill something different in them so that they don't go through kind of what I went through. And I guess that's, aside from that normal kind of upbringing, that's what I think about when I look back. And it does make me feel quite sad to a point.
Yeah, it's understandable, I think. Were there any moments in particular where you felt you did want to share an opinion or you did try and sort of have your voice and really go, actually, what I have to say is important, it's valid, and it was maybe shut down or invalidated? Because sometimes, often when we experience that, is what then leads us to continue not having that voice and opinion. Were there any moments that you remember in particular like that?
Do you know, actually, no, because I genuinely just felt like I needed to stay quiet. I was that person in the school classroom who, when the teacher says, who wants to read out loud, or can you, I'm going to pick, three people to read out loud, and I literally would be kind of
Like,
head in my hands, like, do not pick me, do not pick me. And that's the things that I remember.
mm,
I've got this. I did a lot of dancing when I was younger, and this one picture always sticks in my mind. I loved dancing, because it wasn't talking. I didn't need to talk. It was expressing myself through movement. It
mm.
wasn't expressing myself through words. And I think that's where I loved it so much. And I was put forward for competitions, and I've got this picture where I'm on stage with, I think it was about 8 to 10 other girls similar age to me. And I'm holding up my number, and you're being judged, and they're calling out, who's first, second, third place. And I can't even bring my head up to make eye contact. I'm
Mm.
kind of the only one in this line where I'm holding my number, my head's down. And yeah, that things like that stick with me, because I just think, I think it's confidence as well. It was a mixture of low confidence, not feeling like I was able to fully embrace who I was, and kind of speak with confidence. So it's moments like that that really stand out to me.
It's so interesting because I feel like our journeys in some aspects sort of mirror each other. And I
Mm.
think that's where we sort of connect really well. It's the it when you was sharing about being taken back and you're going, oh no, please don't pick on me, please don't pick on me. And then either you get picked on, you're like, oh crap, like I don't want to share, or there's like 29 other people in the room and you had to pick me. And then you feel like the trembly voice, or you feel like it's not actually fully coming out, or you don't want it to. And it takes me back with being at school too, and you just want to put your head down. I completely understand how you might be feeling. Did that impact you at all with like friend circles and socially? And, even after leaving school, did that sort of have like an impact as you were growing up and forming sort of social groups too?
It's a funny one, because when I look back, I was always part of a group, but I was quite comfortable with that. I was quite. I can't remember how those groups formed, but obviously, I was quite comfortable being in a group because it was quite a safe environment for me. But when I think about how it really impacted me, I would say, actually, my career, especially my early days, it was very much about who you knew and not what you knew. And
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that. I got the job because I went for a job interview. I didn't get the job because I knew anyone. I didn't really know anyone in that industry. And, if I'm honest, but I think where it did hinder me was, I could have been networking. If I knew then what I know now, I could have been networking, I could have been speaking to other people in the industry, I could have been kind of working my way around, figuring what was really, what would really kind of lit me up, or just broadening my horizons, I guess. And I
Mm,
think because I didn't have the ability to do that, I kept really small. And I ended up staying in a job for a number of years because you just don't know that there's any other way, or anything else out there, so you
mm,
stay small. And I particularly remember one incident which really does stick with me, actually, when I think about my early days. We I remember going, and I had to speak to one of the editors, and they kind of, they're in charge of the newsroom. If you imagine like a TV newsroom, was a really busy place,
mm.
lots of people shouting over each other. For someone who was quite quiet and shy, and I mean, it really was just a complete eye opener when I went into that industry. And I remember going over to this editor, and before I even spoke, I introduced who I was, even though I had been there already for about 6 months doing shifts. And I just assumed, because I had that innate nature, I guess, of feeling like I was invisible, feeling like people wouldn't remember me, that I had to introduce myself. And this lovely editor turned around to me and said, "I know who you are, Sarah." And I think that was the first moment, particularly in my career, where I really felt, oh, wow, actually, I feel seen, I feel heard. And I think that kind of then helped and kind of propelled me on a slightly different journey, I would say.
So from that moment, we all remember someone who's given us that sense of like belief again, and they're like, "Wow, someone actually sees me. I'm not as invisible as I think." And thank you to this person who said that in response to you, because even the way you say it, it's almost like it's re-lit you up again. Like you
Mm,
remember that specific moment where maybe your whole like aura field change of like, actually, yes, I am here. From that point onwards, how did you start, embodying that? Did you start, feeling and doing things differently, from that point?
think I think there was many, many years after that where I took slow steps. I took tiny steps, but there was no big, suddenly I feel like I've got a voice. There was no kind of big moment about that
Mm,
until I did my coaching qualification. So I worked in corporate. Obviously I was very competent in what I did. I was able to handle different people, different members of the public, celebrities. I was able to do all of that. And I think because I had that competence, then I was able to use my voice. But there was always that sense of, again, it goes back to worth, feeling like I wasn't worthy, feeling like, who wants to hear my opinion, I guess. And so it wasn't until I really did my coaching qualification that I suddenly felt, wow, okay, I have a voice, and actually, maybe people do want to hear it. And it started kind of, I don't know, that started something for me.
tell us a little bit more about, your coaching in terms of what feelings that invokes for you as well as your client. Particularly, I know you mentioned working with women, and why in particular we feel as a collective our voices are still not being heard enough. Are there contributing factors like society still, or limiting beliefs? Talk us a little bit about that and your coaching and what you've noticed.
Mm. So I think what propelled me to start my own business was I was seeing this pattern, and actually Since I've kind of left the corporate world and I've branched out, I've done a lot of networking in the last 12 months. I've probably spoken to hundreds of small business owners, particularly women. And it's just reaffirmed kind of what I thought in the first place, that I feel like there's a generation of women, I would say probably kind of late 30s, 40s, going into 50s, whereby we feel that really that we don't have the skills and the knowledge to be able to speak up. I said mentioned before about my two daughters who are at secondary school. The things that they're doing at school, they're regularly doing presentations. They're encouraged to put their hand up. They're encouraged to speak. The things that I could not do when I was their age. It's amazing to see because it is building that confidence really, really slowly. So the next generation coming through, I feel like, they're very confident. They feel like they have a voice from early on, which is lovely to see. But there's this generation of women, and I think it's definitely across cultures, without a doubt. But I wonder if it's something around, the women that we were brought up by, feeling like perhaps they didn't have a voice, so they didn't have the skills to then empower us to speak up. I think there's an element of that, but also I do think the schooling system back then it just wasn't equipped like it is now. There weren't that, certainly in my experience, there weren't those opportunities to speak out in front of the class from a really early stage. Or really being encouraged to, put your hand up. There's kind of two big fears that I see time and time again. And that's really the fear of judgment by other people. What are other people going to think? And that really seems to cripple people, and keep them small so that they don't feel like they can say what they actually really want to say. And the other one is, related to that, which is the fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So I hear that so many times from women, that fear of rejection from other people. And obviously this stems from thousands of years ago where, being liked by other people was a matter of life and death. And we were supposed to be liked because we needed to be part of the tribe. And we still have that feeling now. We want other people to like us. We even want people that we don't like to like us.
We've all been there. We're like, "Why don't you like me? Let me try harder." And you're like, "No, no."
Exactly, exactly. So what that does is it keeps you from putting your opinion across because you don't want to say the wrong thing. It keeps, you want to please other people. You want to keep the harmony. So you don't want to say anything that's going to rock the boat. And there's all these different things. But the problem with that is that it doesn't, if you've got a business, it won't help propel your business because, you need to have a voice. You need to give your insight. You need to have opinions about things. And it's so that side of things, it's really sad to see, that there are so many women that this is, that are being blighted by this.
You've hit the nail on the head when you said people pleasing, or we want to please others, and also peace. And something I've learned in life and also coaching with you, is that throughout life you try and like keep the peace, and you hold back your opinions, you hold back things that might contradict what someone else might say for the sake of keeping the peace. And I used to, when I was younger, think this is the right thing to do, everyone's happy, and the only person that wasn't happy was me. And as soon as you start feeling a bit more confident to share a bit, to be a bit more opinionated, that might not be in agreement with someone else, and you get that rejection, you get that judgment, you get that shame. Either you can rise and sort of manage that and go, do you know what, these are your feelings, they're not mine, my opinion still remains the same. Or you retreat and you go, yeah, do you know what, you're right. Like, I agree with you. And I used to do that for so long. And there's something that you mentioned to me that still really sticks. And I do this in networking events. I do this when I'm just out in life talking to different people, um, is sharing and pausing. And if they're feeling uncomfortable or they're saying something to contradict or make you want to agree with them, am still able to stand firm in that because I'm like, that's not my feeling.
Mm,
That's yours. And I think, you're right. It's wanting to keep the harmony and peace, but actually it's doing an injustice to our own selves and you start resenting it almost.
mm. Well, you touched on something there, which was that that feeling of kind of rising above it or shrinking back in. And I wanted to say, actually, I coach women on this now, but it has taken me years to get to that point. You know, I used to have to think every conversation that I would have. Y- I mean, the amount of time I feel like I wasted on, overthinking conversations, and that is a confidence thing. And it is, about being comfortable with your own voice. And I guess, the way that I help women now is really to, yes, it's to speak with impact in media interviews, but actually there's so much more that goes before that. When I say media training and communication coaching, the media training is a very end point because, the coaching that goes on before then to help a woman, believe in what she's saying, to actually have the confidence to use her voice. There's all these different stages before you actually even get to the media training. And, when I've worked with women, there's several different things that are said kind of, when we finished up together, which is, things like it saved them so much time, which in the sense that when you get clear on kind of what you're saying, the clarity that you gain really does help build that confidence. So it's a time saver, but also actually it is just all about that belief and that trust in yourself. I had a client who, from the outset, I thought she seemed very confident. We kind of skipped ahead because I was thinking, oh wow, we don't need to do much of the coaching here. And then actually, quite, you know, halfway through working with her, I was like, oh, I need to go back. I need to go back because there were still some things that were kind of she was holding on to that we just needed to address. And actually, when I finished up working with her, she said, "What you've really given me is that belief in myself." I knew I knew that's what I wanted to achieve. I just needed that belief and that confidence that actually I could go out there and do it. So it's all about belief and trust. And again, even personally for me, that has taken years to get to that point. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping other women because I've kind of done all the work. I spent 2 years doing coaching qualification whilst working 4 days a week and raising a family. I've done all that hard work so that I can help other women in a shorter time frame, using all those amazing tools that I got taught that help me transform kind of my voice to be able to help others transform theirs as well.
Do you feel like you see a little bit of yourself in every client that you work with?
But it's so funny you say that because what something I've noticed recently. So when part of working with me, and I don't I try and do this with every client that I work with because I think it's really important. But we do something called a DISC behavioral assessment, which assesses your communication style. And that's really important because for me, when I did that training and when I learned to accept actually how I communicate, it it honestly changed things around for me. My relationships improved. There was a real self-acceptance as to how I communicate and that was okay. And other people communicate in a different way and that's okay as well. So it was almost that self-acceptance for me, but also the acceptance that other people communicate in a certain way and that's okay. And something that I've noticed actually, because I'm obviously very aware of my style, is that the people that I'm attracting actually have a similar style to me. So
Huh?
it's funny that you say that because that is something that I've noticed actually, particularly in the last few months.
You know what they say, law of attraction, law, we we start attracting those that mirror us
Mm.
essentially. But I think that's amazing because then it means that you can connect on that deeper level. You can understand them on a completely different level than you would like on like a normal occasion or different people, like, but it doesn't mean no ability to connect with them isn't there. You've got those skills. It's just happened to be that you sort of mirroring the people that are coming to you, which I really, really like. What does communicating to ourselves truly mean to you? Like when you say, this is how I communicate with myself, what does that truly mean?
So I would say it all goes back to the language that you're using. So, you know, I'm a big believer in kind of there's positive and negative language. So even as simple as, someone asks you how you are, if you say I'm not bad, well, those are words that you're associating with kind of negativity. Whereas you could say, great, thanks, or, fine, or something like that, something that's a bit more kind of positive. And it's just about those words that you're saying to yourself. Again, it's taken me a lot of work and a lot of time to kind of get to that point. But, it's all about, isn't it? If you can't be your own biggest cheerleader, who is going to cheer for you? And that is even something I continually say to myself to this day, because it's very easy to, rely on other people to kind of make you feel a certain way, or rely on others in almost giving them the control. Whereas actually, it's about you giving yourself the control. And I think that the words that you use to yourself are a big part of that. And it's also, they say, don't they, the words that you use, the thoughts that you have, leads to kind of your action and the outcomes in your life. And it all starts with that. But there's certain things as well that can kind of help and aid that conversation. I think it's very easy for someone to sit here and say, you know, we need to kind of turn up as our best selves. There's a lot of things and a lot of different things for different people as to what that means. So I think actually, even before, you think about the language that you're using, think about, what can I do? What can I do that will get me into, the best energy I can be in, today, to then help those thoughts come through. I know you've got a certain thing that you do. For me, that's exercise. I've got up this morning and done some exercise because I know I need to be in my best energy. And then it helps those thoughts come through, I would say.
Yeah. I think you're right. I agree with you in the sense of it comes down to yourself first. And I think, it's important for people to be mindful of their own accountability for their own lives, really questioning themselves to go, this is how I'm feeling, this is where I'm at, what can I do about it? Is there options that I can explore? Are they within my means? And if they are, what are you doing to try and actually take action, like you said? And even you just saying, you went to the gym, did some exercise, that's holding yourself accountable for something that feels good for you, that will boost your energy. For me, it's going for a park walk to be in nature, to sort of decompress a little bit, get my energy, and then sort of be able to, maintain that for the rest of the day. And I think what I loved about you and your sessions is the accountability piece is always there, but it's never in a way that you feel it's unachievable. You feel like it's it's something that you can't sustain as well. And we forget how little these things can be. A simple walk, going to do some exercise. You can even do that in your own home for 30 minutes if you wanted to. And I really love that. Are there any particular exercises that you do in your coaching sessions that really help empower those belief systems or kind of reshape the way people think about themselves?
Yeah, so we look at kind of reframing those beliefs, and actually something when we were working together, I was looking for an exercise. You know, you're an artist, you know, you're all about being creative, that could really help you kind of visualize actually those thoughts. And an amazing exercise which I can share is something around the passengers on the bus. And it's all about having kind of two buses, and well, the first bus, you know, you can have your emotions kind of sit on the bus, and they can be ejected off the bus. And it's all about, you know, on that first bus, what are you holding? What are you holding? What's keeping you perhaps stuck, or what's really, you know, not serving kind of where you want to be? And just kind of placing those in that first bus, you know, and almost imagining these kind of emotions and thoughts kind of, you know, driving around on the bus and feeling like, where are they going? How are they serving you? And then you've almost got kind of a second bus, which is the emotions and the thoughts that you have as to where you want to be and where you want to go. And, you know, what do you need to get rid of? What needs to come onto the bus to be able to get you where you want to be? You know, and I'm a visual person as well, and I find this really is really helpful, because it just means, you know, you can say, no, I don't need that thought today, or I don't need that emotion anymore. I'm clinging on to that. I'm holding on to it. Actually, I can let that go, you know, in and something else can take its place. So we kind of press the eject button, you know, they can leave, they can
Kick
get
them
off
off.
this bus. But I mean, you know, your reaction to exercise was brilliant. I mean, what was your experience of
It
doing?
was so intrusive of these like little things, just me like booting them off this bus, like, or just really going, nope, sit back down, like lack of confidence, sit back down, low self-esteem, like you don't belong here. And I used to, it's like this yippee bus that me and my sister would talk about as well. And that's how she imagined hers. It's like these like newfound, she called them potato chips. I just, mine didn't have a name, but it was like these chips with eyes are going yippee. And for me and my bus is all like things like a newfound sort of confidence, my voice coming back. It was feeling like I belong here again. It's just, they're just always like celebrating with their arms up like this. And the other ones is just being booted off, kicked off, punched off, like physical kind of like go away, because sometimes that can be too consuming. And we're all human. Sometimes we do fall back into that first bus with those negative ones, because we are human. And exploring sort of inner child healing, and when I work with clients myself in the art world and doing workshops, it those negative thoughts are so strong. It's so subconscious. We don't realize we're doing it. Like doing an art session not long ago, and it's like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. And this they roll off the tongue. So this passengers on the bus exercise, it really consciously makes you think and kicks in that sort of being present with it and going, wow, I'm carrying this. I'm still carrying this. Why? Why does it need to be here? Why are they still following me around when actually it's not, I don't identify with it anymore. And that I felt when I was sharing with you, it felt like this whole layer of skin came off like a snake. It was just peeling back the old and going, no, I'm now embodying this new. And it's not easy. It takes time to sort of step into that new self identity, self belief system. And you do fall back. But that to me was the most impactful thing throughout our session. And I still see it. I'm visualizing it right now. I can see them like, yeah. And then every time I just want to like boot or punch them off, and it really does work. So yeah, anyone listening, like, this is the most powerful thing I've had with you, and please do, like, speak to Sarah. She's amazing at what she does. It sticks, and these are tools for life. It wasn't just part of the
Yeah.
sessions. They're gonna be with me until I'm no longer here. So thank you,
Yeah. Well,
Sarah.
this is the power of the coaching, and obviously, I specialize in communication coaching, so it is all about speaking, speaking with impact, and these are tools for life, and also I just want to get across that actually it's not do the exercise and then everything's fine. These are I speak for both of us that, these are tools and practices that we are using day in, day out. I have really bad days, but I have the coping strategies now to know, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to go and exercise. I need to go journal. I need to imagine, my positive bus the things that I need. This is not things that are gonna help change you overnight, but it's just small steps to get you, taking action. And actually, I think you've said it before, and I've, it's very much the same for me. The people that you work with, they're there because they want to change. They see that something, is not right and that you can support them in that. And I think that's kind of the number one thing, isn't it? Is just that acknowledging that, okay, this is not right. I need some help. I need some support, and actually seeking out whatever that looks like.
Yeah, you're right. It's the seeking out, and it's seeking out for the right places as well. As you step into this new identity and who you want to embody, with some setbacks, which is completely normal, it's also important to align with the right people who mirror that now than what was before. And I don't know if you've experienced this, maybe you have. I definitely have, in terms of having to shed the old, in terms of people, places, things, and habits. And people has been the hardest one because people have been around for years. You have these, I quote, connections when actually it's just time you've known people, right? But over the years, as you change, if the surroundings and people you're with aren't changing in a similar way, it's fine if they don't want to, that's fine. It does impact this new embodiment. It does impact whether you are able to move forward with it or you stay stuck. Has that been the case for you in terms of reevaluating your surroundings and people?
It definitely has. It definitely has. I had friendships that really had run their course long before I ever realized. But again, that was me, kind of 15 years ago, where but I didn't know, that I could I could really speak with impact. I could voice my opinion. I could, I kind of stayed small, and those connections are very different to the connections I have these days. And I do wish looking back, I could have easily said, okay, that's not serving me. So let's, kind of do something about that and then try and find my people. Um, but it's a really interesting one. I think the surrounding yourself with the right people is so important.
How was that transition for you? Because I know for me, I felt incredibly lonely, and it does hit me still sometimes. And I will admit, despite everything you could be doing and you're on your purpose and mission to help people and you're always networking, sometimes that it does feel lonely because you're in between two worlds, and you're really trying to break free from the old and stepping into the new. But what's more lonely, I used to find, is staying in the old. And then the uncertainty of what this new looks like, who's going to be coming. And there's a lot of like self reflection time. How was that feeling for you in the sort of transition from moving from old to new?
It's a really interesting question because I still feel like I still feel there's an element of not fully stepping into my voice. I still have to work on that, even though I teach other people, it's something I'm working on every single day. I think it does help that I've surrounded myself with people going through a similar kind of thing. So, where in the last 12 months for me, that's been building a business. So, I've surrounded myself with people who are also building businesses, going through that similar thing. And I think that's really important. But that doesn't have to be just, you know, a community for building a business. It could be, that you've got a particular hobby that you like, or something that you want to do, and doing more of that. And hanging out with people that like the similar hobby. So I think it's
Mm.
about surrounding yourself with people in an environment that you feel safe and comfortable,
Mm.
and also just having, even if it's just one person, just having one person that you can completely open up to. Because I'm very aware, I don't know whether it's a stage of life, or I'm very aware that, everybody's got things going on, haven't they? Everybody's got things going on. I don't want to burden, I don't want to burden other people. I've got friends that I can talk to, but it's quite a few people,
Yeah.
and I think that's just my personality as well. I quite like one-to-one in-depth conversations.
Mhm.
And I know you're similar as well. And so I'm very grateful that I've got, those few people that I can really confide in. And I think that's important. And even as adults, I mean, it's difficult for us to make friends and things, isn't it? So I think we have to put ourselves in those situations, whether it's a hobby or it's a stage of life, or, where you are going out there, and we're looking to make connections with people who are going through a similar thing.
Yeah, I think it's the qualities that we need in ourselves that we usually need or look for in others to form that depth of connection. And I think the qualities that for me, I felt you definitely have, and it was really impactful for me, is your ability to empathize, curiosity, and just your natural like intuition that you had about how to navigate certain conversations, how to sort of be mindful of certain things, just the level of curiosity that you have. And like when I thought I was speaking to you, the level of empathy and that no judgment is to me where I just felt really safe. And I think looking for those qualities in people, in new environments to maybe connect and make a new friend. If it's not the case of making a new friend, you're just making a connection that day. It's those are the qualities I really like. What would you say your qualities you really like or look for in another individual to feel safe?
To feel safe. Oh, that's interesting. Something I wanted to pick up on was I do get energy from other people. And so I know that going into situations where other people are there is really beneficial for me. My goodness, sometimes I really don't want to do that.
Yeah. Like, oh man.
Sometimes I really don't want to do that, even though going is the best thing for me. So it's such a weird kind of balance of, I don't, I don't necessarily want to go, but I know going is going to be really beneficial.
I know we sit there and like, shall I? Shall I not? Shall I? Shall I not? And then either your own mind goes, just get up and go. Once
Yeah.
you're out there, you're going to be absolutely fine. And then when you're there, like, yeah, I'm so glad I came. It's just, it is. It's sometimes often I don't know, and my experiences growing up, like being on my own or being in that little bubble with myself where I feel safe is way nicer, way more comfortable. But actually, it's just going to keep me stuck if I don't try. But we're
Yeah.
human and it's okay to say
Yeah.
no sometimes, knowing yourself enough. But it's, yeah, I can completely resonate when you say it's just that little oomph to go, no, I know it feels good. Um,
And I was just gonna pick up on your other question there about other people. And what I would say is, similarly to what you were saying, actually, it's about someone who has that ability to make you feel seen and heard. And I think a lot of that is the confidence to ask the right questions. So, I am a very curious person. If I'm meeting someone for the first time, I will quite often kind of ask, how did they get to that point, or what's their story, or what did they do before they launched their business, or because these things really make that person who they are, and I want to hear about that. So I think it's about that, again, that mirroring, that curiosity on the other part, wanting to know about you, and asking those right questions to make you feel like, oh wow, this person's actually really interested. Because at the end of the day, something I feel passionate about is that we all want to feel like we're worthy, like we're
Mhm.
important. And one of the things, whether that was through my career or personal life, or one of the things I really bugs me now is when people don't make other people feel important. Like, someone comes into the office, I would be one of the first people to say, "Hi, how are you?"
Mm.
Remembering what we'd spoken about before, and saying, and asking them about, I don't know, their cat, or whatever, whatever it was. But what you're doing in that moment is you're telling that person that what they say is important. And I think that's such a great quality to have. And I don't think enough people have that quality.
Mm.
And it's such a basic communication skill to
Mhm.
actually acknowledge somebody, to reference something that they have spoken about in the past. It is such a small thing that makes a massive difference.
Do you think social media has had an impact on people's ability to really connect on that level of, being able to be curious instead of just like sharing about ourselves? And I personally feel social media is more about s- putting things out there than learning to be curious and listening to other people. And I think we're so absorbed, and we can be absorbed with what things look like, the short bursts of look at me and no one else. And it's not actually teaching people to go, what about you? Let me take a step back and listen. I have a whole thing about social media right now. If I didn't have to have it, I wouldn't. I'd get rid of it and I'd live in like the wild somewhere. But what is your opinion on social media and the impact of actually being curious about?
I've had a real journey with social media. So before I started my business, I I didn't even used to post on my social platforms very often, because I felt like social media was, and it still is, it's like a shop window, isn't it? It's like this is what I do, this is what I've been up to. And I think there was that lack of connection.
Mm.
And so I didn't feel like it was something I really wanted to engage in. Seeing it now from the other side, I think things have changed quite a lot, in that people are being more honest on there. People are kind of, telling their stories. They're being more authentic, and I think authenticity is huge, particularly this year. It's so that's been a nice change to see, but it never, ever, ever takes away from either face to face or just that one to one connection. So, I know you're building your business, I'm building my business. It's nothing ever takes away from having that connection that you can have with a person. And I think that's the most important thing, and asking those questions and going a little bit deeper and finding out what's going on with that person. That's kind of where that's where the magic is.
Yeah, I agree. And it comes back to your point about the world that we associate with when you're on your journey, in terms of people who are being more authentic, people who are being vulnerable to share, people who are teaching so you can learn things from people through social media. It's a powerful, powerful tool. It's when it comes down to socializing and interacting, but you're in a group and everyone's on their phones, and you're like, but you're around the people that you wanted to interact with. And I've had many occasions when you've been out with people and it's like they're more interested on who's on the other end of the phone than right opposite you. And it's what world we are choosing as well to interact with ourselves. If those are the ones that don't resonate, I probably won't hang out with those kind of
Yeah,
people, but we'd be more inclined to the ones that you've mentioned, the authentic ones, the ones doing things for a purpose. I know for with my business, I share just to showcase what I'm up to, what things I offer, but it's in those moments of hosting a workshop or you doing a client call, you're completely present with them, and that, you're not distracted by other things, which, I would love to go back to basics with that, the non-distraction, just
no phones.
one-to-ones. Yeah, just give me the landline once a week. I have a deep conversation, put it back down. Like, honestly, it's it's a double-edged sword. It's yeah.
Yeah, but again, see, that is such a, it's a way of communicating. And again, it's probably the work that I've done, but I love nothing than putting my phone more than putting my phone away. If I'm going to an event, I will happily put my phone away for hours, you know, and not look at it, because again, it goes back to that element of making that other person feel important. If you're midway through a conversation and you get your phone out, you're instantly saying to that person, okay, what you're saying doesn't matter, so you're not being heard, you're not feeling seen, you're not feeling important. Whereas actually, if you want to nurture that relationship, put your phone away, have a conversation. So again, it just boils down to that.
So true. I could talk on social media in this topic for hours because I feel so passionate about certain aspects of it, but it's so true. Like, just what happened to just sitting in a park and talking one on one with someone, or skipping rocks, or and everything I feel is you do things for the point of posting, or you do things for the external sort of validation. And yes, we need validation. We are humans. Around the right people, you can have healthy validation. It's so important. But yeah, it's mid conversation, or while you're around people physically, to pick up that phone. It does make you feel unheard, unseen, invalidated, all the things that we both felt, and in particular you shared today, of how you felt a lot of your life. And it's not nice. It takes you way back there. And you go, is it me? Is it something I've said? Should I not? So yeah, it's a powerful tool, but it's also our biggest nightmare maybe. What from this conversation, I know so many people will take away so many amazing things from you sharing today, so I'm really grateful for you and for coming on. What would you like to offer, and what are you up to over the next couple of weeks as well?
So what would I like to offer? Well, I'm definitely going to put together that exercise, and I'm going to share that with you so that you can give out the link. That's absolutely fine. I think if you're looking for a first step towards, actually improving your communication, it has to start with yourself. And so that is a great exercise to start with. In terms of the next few months, well, I taking on one-to-one clients. Obviously, will be in the new year, and then the focus next year is really on. I'm looking to do some kind of live filming days. I even have my own podcast in the mix, Nisha. Maybe we could
Yay!
swap. Maybe you could come to that at some point.
How exciting! Yes.
So, yes, lots of exciting things kind of coming up. And yeah, it's been such a pleasure to kind of speak to you today.
Okay, where can people find you?
So I'm primarily on Instagram and LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, Sarah Collins, and Instagram is Sarah Collins _ coach consultant. I've also got a website, sarahcollinscoaching.com. And come and say hello. Honestly, I love having a real conversation. Just on
Real people, real
email,
conversation.
not just on the inbox, come and have a real conversation. That's what I love.
Yes, to anyone watching, please do. You won't regret it. I have not met you in person yet, but even just virtually, it's been so nice to chat to you. You are like the safest person that I've met this year. Honestly, take it as my thing. You've had a huge impact on me, so I know you'll continue to have a
That's so
huge
sweet.
impact on everyone else that you work with too. You are a godsend. Please do not stop what you're doing. I will be your biggest cheerleader. I will be sharing your socials, places people can contact you, and giving people an update on what you've been up to. So thank you so much. I've loved having you today.
Thank you.